the full measure of the comment or the context of the comment.
But I also think that the scarcity, let's use the example of Sarah Palin. Her campaign is now telling CNN and Time magazine in the States that she doesn't want to talk to the American media. Like, why should she talk to the American media? She's talking to the American people.
Well, she's talking to People magazine, isn't
yeah,
she? So,
and my point, and my point is that we've been talking about cameras, campaigns pointing their cameras at their opponents, bloggers pointing their cameras at other bloggers. But what we haven't talked about is campaigns pointing cameras at themselves. And I think that's where, to get at your earlier question, Steve, that's what's really disturbing is when they start to say rhetorically, make the case, argumentatively making the case that, well, we want to speak directly to the American people or the Canadian people. Well, and I think that's a big concern.
Can I just
Katie, then Andrew.
Yeah, I just wanted to say that this is something that actually, Stephen mentioned earlier, the Parliamentary Press Gallery. I think, as some people know, there's been maybe a little bit of tension in the 2 years that this government's been in power over exactly that issue. And one of the things that the Conservative Party did kind of indicate in a number of ways, and every right to do so, was that they kind of did want to circumvent the, again, so-called dreaded mainstream media and talk directly to the Canadian people. And as journalists, you know what? It's our job to, if that's what a government's going to do, we got to figure out a way to work around it. And I think we have, to a certain extent. It's been very interesting to watch that evolution.
Andrew, then Stephen.
Well, I'm just going to simply point out that what Sarah Palin's doing is actually trying to limit the amount of questions that might be asked of her. And so she is operating in a top-down, very controlled way, and I think that eventually that's going to hurt her and the McCain campaign, because I think the public is going to start sensing that there's this reticence about her methodology. But on the other hand, candidates also have learned how to flood the zone. You know, the text message by Barack Obama announcing Joe Biden as the VP was interesting, not because of the fact that he used text messaging, but at the end of the text message, they invited people to watch their joint appearance, not on CNN, not on any of the mainstream networks, but on BarackObama.com. The Obama campaign has realized that it is actually a media operation, and it is filling the airwaves and flooding the zone with messages that they themselves produce, and they fill as much of the internet as they can with it. And as a result, when people search for information, very often it's information that's produced by the campaign, but it's in its full form. And it's not edited down, and it's spread by its supporters. So I think there's some interesting tension here between scarcity and abundance, but the reality of it is that the cat's out of the bag, and you're not going to be able to control it, and transparency will be the byproduct of this technology.
Stephen, quick word before I hit another clip.
Yeah, well, if politics is supposed to be a discussion among many people, quite literally, well, power to the people, why does there need to be this media filter when there is the direct communication between citizen journalists and the electorate and the politicians? Why go through a middleman? And I think there's Clay Shirky, who wrote Here Comes Everything, famously wrote that the advent of blogging and social media is similar to when scribes found themselves out of a job when the movable type was invented. And perhaps we're seeing an evolution of journalism, especially in the way it covers politics, if it's supposed to be a direct conversation between, well, the political stakeholders, the people, and the politicians, those who would wish to represent those people.
Here's another great example of citizen engagement. This was something done completely by an amateur. This was not a professional ad company that put this together, and it, as they say, went viral. Take a look.
I hope you've learned a little bit more about what I'm believing and trying to do, and really helped this conversation about our country get started.
I hope to keep this conversation going all the way to November 2008.
And this was taking one of the most iconic commercials ever made by a professional company to promote a product, and the bones of it, I guess, were completely jigged around by somebody in their basement on a computer in order to show that Hillary was the evil empire and Barack Obama was the way to go. And Andrew, I'm just wondering, who does that kind of thing?
Well, someone who is literate, somebody who not only understands complex video when it's presented to them, but also can create complex video. And the tools that allow people to manipulate video are getting easier and easier, and there's an entire new generation that's spending more time on video and watching video, whether it be on big flat screen TVs in their homes or on iPods in their pocket, there is a new way in which ideas are going to be communicated and methods by which people are going to form those ideas. That particular video that you just showed was a great example of what we call voter-generated content here in the U.S. that gets picked up by the mainstream media and then gets amplified because the mainstream media shows it, then drives more people to watch it on the web, and it becomes a sort of virtuous circle where it gets millions and millions of views. The question is whether how much of it really impacts people's opinions. And you know, that particular video was a prophecy about the election. It happened to come out true, but it was probably more of a phenomenon not because of its political implications, but because of the fact that it was actually showing how the media ecology was changing.
Can I challenge you on that a bit? The thrust
Sure.
of that was that Hillary Clinton was kind of the evil establishment here, and here was this neat new guy named Barack Obama coming along, when in fact by the time the campaign was over, she was the one who was speaking for the invisibles and for the ordinary guy, and he was the one who was supported by all the elites in the Democratic Party.
Yeah, but you got to remember, she announced her campaign on the internet promising to have a conversation.
Right.
And the reality of it is that you really couldn't have a conversation with her. There were emails that you could send in, and her staff was picking out which ones to ask her. There really wasn't a two-way medium. She was using the internet as her own private C-SPAN, and there really wasn't an understanding of the culture of the internet. And that video was produced by somebody who recognized that it was really disingenuous on the part of the Hillary Clinton campaign to claim a conversation using the internet when in fact there wasn't really one to be had.
Okay, we've only got about 6 minutes left here, and I want to show another one, because this one, if that one was, you know, a silver medal, this one's a gold medal. This one is unreal. I don't know who's got the... Somebody was incredibly expert, had a lot of time, and came up with really a beautiful piece of work. Roll tape, Michael.
Strike a pose. Marlon Brando, Jimmy Dean,
Programs approaching bankruptcy,
Gene Kelly, Fred Astaire,
prohibitively expensive health care,
Lauren Catherine Manitou,
job loss, failing schools,
ladies with an attitude.
rising food prices, to name a few.
Don't just stand there, let's get to it. Strike a pose, there's nothing to it. Vogue, 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 Vogue.